Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 4 of the Driver's Debrief. I took a little bit of a hiatus because I was actually on vacation with my wife, going back home from Arizona, back home to Texas to see some family. And we're back now. And what did I miss? I mean, we have arguably the biggest driver transfer news in the history of Formula One. We have arguably the biggest team drama in the history of Formula One. And then on top of it all, we have the 24 hours of Daytona to go through the results. We're going to do like a dedicated um, endurance racing episode with a former pro driver, BJ Zacharias. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But we got a lot to talk about, so we're going to get into it. But before we jump in, head first to the couple weeks worth of news that I have missed and I have to catch up on. Make sure to like and subscribe right here on YouTube. Like the video, share it with friends, share it with family, share it with your network. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you to the 21 subs. But I also have to say two special thank yous. First off, to Power Stop Brakes. Power Stop Brakes has given a pretty sweet set of carbon ceramic pads, carbon rotors to me for my Camaro SS, aptly named Snow Dog. So those are going to be going on soon. We're going to be making a video for that. So thank you to Power Stop. If you want brakes for track applications or street applications or a little bit of both, make sure to check out Power Stop Brakes. And then the other one is to someone who's not actually a sponsor, but as I grabbed the hat this morning, I was like, you know what? I should make a special note. Please do go check out Racing for ALS. It's a really amazing charity that does great things for a group of people that suffer from a disease that very few people know about. My grandmother was affected by it, and I know that it takes quite a toll on anybody involved. Horrible disease that Racing for ALS helps improve the quality of life for those people. So make sure to go check them out. Okay. Let me grab some cold brew real quick. We got a lot to talk about. So I'm getting out my handy Twitter bookmark folder. But let's just start with some Formula One news. We're not going to do the big ones yet. Just wait. We're starting with Formula One. 5 hours ago, the Japanese Grand Prix has extended and has confirmed it will remain on the calendar until 2029, which is some lovely news because if you remember our last episode, we were talking about how it might be replaced with Osaka and how, Lord help me, that would have been miserable. But fortunately, Suzuka, one of the most storied names in the sport, has confirmed that they are staying on the calendar. In other F1 news, I don't remember if it was rumored or if it was confirmed, but either way, the Chicago Formula One race is they're beginning to move. They're starting to not break ground, but they're actively making plans for it. Unfortunately, Malaysia is plotting a return to the F1 calendar in 2026, and this is according to Reuters, because the business Petronas, obviously that you're familiar with from the Mercedes sponsorship, they are trying to back it financially to get that track back on the calendar. Let's move on to some MotoGP news. We have some horrible news. A couple days ago, Frankie Morbidelli had a horrible crash after testing. He seems to be in good spirits. Apparently, it was a precautionary check, but he's been in the hospital. MotoGP was posting about it. The Argentina GP for 2024 in MotoGP has been canceled, and it will not be replaced. So this isn't, oh, it got canceled, we're going to replace it with it. Just flat out, it's done. So the GP calendar is going to be one race shorter this year than it was last year. Let's do some sports car racing, shall we? Iron Dames has confirmed their World Endurance Championship GT3 lineup for 2024. Dorian Pin is joining Michelle Gadding and Sarah Bovey in the 85 Lamborghini Huracan. So they're going to be racing the full World Endurance campaign next season. We have their 2024 World Endurance lineup for the Iron Lynx. It's going to be Claudio Scavone, Matteo Crisoni, and Frank Pereira. So, in case you're unaware, it's Iron Links, Iron Dames. Links is guys, Dames is women. And so those are their two lineups. Manti Racing is returning to the Bathurst 12 hour this year after finishing second last year. And they officially make it a 31 car entry for this year's Enduro. If you have not watched the 12 Hours of Bahrain, let me just tell you, it is one of the craziest and coolest endurance races it is possible to watch on the calendar. Let's see what else. I'm trying to keep it to GT sports cars. Okay, Motorsport 98 and Eric De Donker confirmed that they're running a Mercedes GT2 car in Fanatec GT2 European Series. Let's see. I got some other F1 news and I got some NASCAR news. So we're just gonna skip around. Listen, this was a last minute thing. I decided, hey, let's wake up and let's record because I owe it to y'all. I haven't done it in a while. And to be completely honest, I didn't have notes put together. So we're just quite literally on Twitter, just going through our bookmarks. Aston Martin F1 team has announced a new partnership with OMP. That's replacing Alpine Stars, whatever. RFK Racing, Roush Fenway, Keselowski Racing, NASCAR is accelerating their innovation. They started a new organization called the RFK Tech Alliance, and that is purely dedicated to developing new technologies for the path forward. We have livery reveals in MotoGP for Gas Ducati. And I'm not gonna lie, I like their 2023 livery more. Their 2024 car livery has more black on it, has bigger Red Bull advertising. Not really a fan of MotoGP. Sorry. We also have the new VR46 Racing MotoGP livery, and it is highlighter yellow and white, and it looks really damn good. It just looks sensational. Moving back to Formula One, according to Racer Mag, excuse me, Alan Permain is one of the new hires at Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. After he spent 3 decades at what is obviously known as Alpine, prior it was Renault and otherwise. Lewis Hamilton has ended his agreement with management company Copper. He's once again working with Mark Hines, one of his previous managers. We have some sad news in the world of sports cars, and it was that at the Daytona 24 weekend, Devlin D. Francesco's golden retriever puppy was run over and killed. And originally, it was, breaking news. Holy, this is horrible. This is terrible. How could this happen? This is, and it is. It's really sad. I'm a dog guy. But the plot thickens because it turns out it was Chip Ganassi who hit Devlin's dog. So that being said, not Devlin D. Francesco, Chip Ganassi came out and issued a formal apology. He was really polite about it, and then he made a massive donation to the Animal Humane Fund, Animal Humane Society Fund. It's one of those two. So, good on Chip Ganassi for making the donation. I would have just gotten a replacement. Okay, so I just stepped away to blow my nose. I sound a little nasally, and I apologize for it. So that was Chip Ganassi, Devlin D. Francesco. We unfortunately lost Shihomi Hosoya this year, who was a legendary Japanese driver. He had raced Toyota 2000 GTs over in Japan. He raced Toyota like Can-Am cars in the late 60s. So the motorsports community was mourning his loss. Okay, let's just get into it. Let's just get into the Rolex 24 at Daytona, the 2024 edition. And let's get into the winners, and then let's get into a little bit of the controversy and what confused some people as the race finished. So I am so proud to be able to say Porsche and Team Penske claimed the overall win in the Rolex 24 at Daytona. The number 7 Penske Porsche of Matt Campbell, Dane Cameron, Joseph Newgarden, and Felipe Nasr took the win overall. In second place, it was the number 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac. And let me tell you, they fought to the very last lap. That Cadillac had Tom Blomqvist, Pippo Durrani, and Jack Aitken driving it. In third place, we had the number 40 Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti Acura, with Louis Delatraz, Colton Herta, Jensen Button, and Jordan Taylor. In fourth place, we had the Porsche 963, the number 6 car of Nick Tandy, Mathieu Jaminet, Kevin Estra, and Lawrence Vantor, which that car should have won the race if they could have just not gotten, I think it was 4 penalties for exceeding the maximum power output, which that's a whole thing in and of itself. In fifth place, we had the Proton Competition 963 of Neil Yanni, Alessio Piccarello, Romain Dumas, and Jean-Marie Bruni. In sixth, it was the JDC Miller Motorsports Porsche with Team Vanderhelm, Richard Westbrook, Phil Hansen, and Ben Keating. In seventh, it was the number 25 BMW with Rene Rast, Connor D. Filippi, Nick Yellowly, and Maxime Martin. In eighth place, it was the 24 BMW of Jesse Krohn, Philip Eng, Augusto Farfus, and Dries Vantor. In ninth place, winning overall in LMP, or not overall, but winning its class in LMP2, was Christian Rasmussen, Dwight Merriman, Ryan Dial, and Connor Zilich in the Aero Motorsport Orica. We got to talk about Connor Zilich because he won Mazda MX-5 races. I don't remember if he won the Cup, but he won like the All-Star race for Mazda MX-5. He just signed a deal with Trackhouse to run in ARCA or Xfinity next year. His first race in an LMP2 car, his first Daytona 24, wins the class. And not only that, he was battling with Jacobson in the, or was it, no, it was with a CrowdStrike or Tower Motorsports. It was one of those two. Battling with them on track and wins, beats them on track, and then the team wins the class at the end of the 24 hours. Connor Zilich is somebody that I, not being as on the ground with NASCAR as plenty of other people are, and to be fair, even MX-5, totally under my radar. But I will tell you this, after the Trackhouse announcement, I knew of him, knew of his name, and then after this result, I won't forget him. Let's move down to your overall winner in, I keep saying overall, your class winner in GTD Pro. It was the Risi Competizione Ferrari 296 of Alessandro Perguidi, James Collado, Daniel Serra, and Davide Rigon, which is so cool. So cool because one, it's Risi Competizione, Texans, woohoo. But also, you have some of the Ferrari Hypercar Le Mans winning lineup now having won Daytona within a 6-8 month span in a Ferrari, both Hypercar and GT. That's awesome. Super happy for them. And then your GTD winners are Daniel Morad, Russell Ward, Philip Ellis, and Indy Dontier in the Windward Racing Mercedes AMG GT3. So congratulations, obviously, to all of the class winners. Congratulations to Porsche as the overall winner. But it wasn't without controversy. So if you watched the race, first of all, good on you. If you didn't watch the race, I'd love a formal apology down in the comments of this video. But IMSA had on their timing and scoring 2 laps to go. So if you're unaware, if you don't watch endurance racing, if you don't watch races where there's a timer rather than a lap count, typically what happens is as you get down to the last 3 or 4 minutes, you're able to calculate, okay, they're not going to mathematically be able to do more than X amount of laps. So, 2 laps, 3 laps, whatever. So you put up 2 laps left. It goes from a clock that's counting the entire time to a lap counter. So it switches. So it switched to 2 laps left on the counter. And then it was like a GTD car went by, and then an LMP2 car was coming to the start finish. And all of a sudden it went from 2 laps left to final lap, and the flagger was waving the checkered flag. LMP2 car comes across the finish line, wins its class. One of the GT cars comes across the line, finishes its class. Then the 963 comes along, finishes, wins its class. And then it was another GT car. So apparently there's a provision within the IMSA rules that in the event that there's an officiating error, not error as in error motorsport, when there's an officiating error, even though it may have been a mistake, if the checkered flag is waved on track, that has the final say. The flagman, let's say, if he decided with 10 hours left, was like, well, I'm waving it, and he, for whatever reason, was able to wave the checkered flag for all the finishers, it would end the race. There is no balance or counterweight to off-put or counterbalance the potential for an officiating error where they just decide to wave the flag. So the race actually ended. It was like 23 hours, 58 minutes and something. There was another lap left that never got to be run by the leaders. And so you had GT and LMP2 finishing first, and then the leaders coming around and finishing. So people were, if you gave it one more lap, the Cadillac would have had it. They robbed the 31 of a win. This is Abu Dhabi 2021 all over again. It's not. It's not. It wasn't against the rules. That's it. It wasn't against the rules. So see how quickly we can solve that. Unfortunately, I can't do that with the Abu Dhabi 2021 situation. So that all being said, let's stop dancing around it. Let's just get into it. Let's just talk about the slightly overweight Andretti in the room. Oh, no, he's not actually here. So Andretti and GM have been rejected by Formula One for competition in the 2025 season. Formula One cites that Andretti would not be competitive, and they said that Formula One would bring more value to Andretti, and Andretti would not bring any value to Formula One. Those were their two reasons. They won't be competitive. Haas, AlphaTauri. Okay, yeah. Won't be. Okay, no. Good thing those teams are competitive. Alfa Romeo, Kick, Stake. I can't say those words. Sauber. Okay, all right. Won't be competitive, and they won't bring enough value. Let's refer back to some of the team names that are announced for this upcoming season. Stake, Kick, F1, Sauber team, or just Stake, Kick, F1. I don't remember. I don't even know what the name of the team is. And then we have Visa Cash App, something Racing Bulls. Okay. So there's a couple ways to look at value. The value is assets. So Racing Bulls, Sauber, all of them, they have value in assets due to the facilities, due to the existing cars, due to the staffing, right? That has value. But I think this is what everybody assumes F1's referring to when they say value is not enough people are going to buy your merch. You're not famous enough to bring people into F1 that might not have already have been fans. Because here's the thing. The only reason F1 would really care too much about having a new team join the sport is it going to bring in new people, bring in competition, which competition as a byproduct will bring in more spectators. Or if they're not going to be competitive, are they going to bring in people who maybe wouldn't watch F1, who now would? Because that has value for F1. So let's take it one by one. Competitiveness. They'll absolutely be competitive, even if it's not their first year. I would be shocked if Andretti doesn't become a championship team within 5 years. Which, let's just keep in mind, it took Red Bull that long to become competitive, right? Joined the sport, what? I might be mistaken, 2005? First competitive championship year, 2010. 5 years. I think Andretti has the likelihood where they could be competitive sooner because they've started development earlier and they're looking out several years into the future. Granted, at the time that they started, which was over a year ago. That would be 2022. Looking for 2026 regulations. That's 4 years. 4 years of time that has built itself between when they started to when they're going to start, hopefully in F1. And they have been developing a car the entire way. They already have a full staff. They already have all the facilities. So anyway, competitiveness. You have one of the largest, if not the largest, automotive OEM in the world with General Motors. They could pick from Chevrolet. They could pick from Cadillac. They could pick GMC. I don't know why they would, but they could, to end up being the OEM partner for Andretti. You have Chevrolet and IndyCar. I can't even count how many Indy 500 Chevrolet has won. Well, that's only because Chevrolet and Honda are the only two engine options. You can go back prior to that deal being the case and talk about how many Indy 500 Chevy's won, how many Indy championships they've won. Let's look at the caliber of teams that Chevrolet works with. Let's look at Chevrolet's competition in GT racing, where they're beating Ferrari and they're beating Ford and they're beating Porsche. Now, granted, obviously not all the time, but look at their dominance at Le Mans. So you want to talk about competitiveness. I don't think they're, listen, Americans just like to go compete for the sake of competing. Like, you take an American brand, they're going to have the pride and the motivation to say, we want to go race in F1 just to say that we've beat Ferrari. You have the traditional 4V Ferrari story, right? So Andretti has IndyCar championships. They have Indy 500 wins, both as drivers, both as teams. Andretti, Michael Andretti, as a McLaren driver, has more podiums than Haas does in their team history. Oh, and that's one. You want to talk about not being competitive? Let's look on the negative side of it, right? So not an affirmation of competitiveness, but let's look at, by comparison, how Haas, AlphaTauri, Sauber, and Williams have not been competitive. Now, granted, I don't think Williams should be kicked out. I'd be okay with the other three just gone. Get Ganassi and Andretti and Penske. Imagine those three, right? Get those guys out. You bring in Andretti. You think they're going to be less competitive than Williams? You think they're going to be less competitive than Sauber? Really? You think they're going to be less competitive than Haas? Not to mention the fact, let's move on to value. Andretti's not going to bring enough value. Well, for starters, the Andretti name is one of the most legendary names in all of motorsports. Arguably more than Fittipaldi. Arguably more than Piquet, right? And we're talking about someone who did more than just F1. Piquet, F1. Fittipaldi, F1, IndyCar, IROC, did a lot. Andretti, NASCAR, Formula One, IndyCar, IROC, and more. Sports cars. There's 5 already. 5 different racing disciplines. And he won in all of them. 1 Daytona, 1 Sebring, 1 Indianapolis, 1 a Formula One World Championship, 1 NASCAR races in the 60s. So, that's not to mention the fact that then he had sons who went on and raced. Granted, not to the same success he had, but they went on and raced. It's like the Pettys. Kyle Petty was never as good as Richard Petty, but it's still a dynasty, right? So, and same thing with the Earnhardts. So, you want to talk about value. Name one family that was a former competitor that now owns a team that has more value to the F1 community specifically than Andretti. Ganassi, I would argue, has more value, or Penske, but not in a Formula One context. Andretti is synonymous with Formula One. So if you were to take a Penske, who, again, I think has more value just net than Andretti, and I think is more competitive just overall than Andretti. When you look at that in Formula One, it's not the same. Penske has the IndyCar heritage. They have the sports car heritage. They have the IndyCar. Did I already say that? NASCAR. Andretti has all of that plus Formula One. So the point about value, I think, is completely unwarranted. And I've seen a lot of people on X, on Twitter, on whatever you want to call it, on social media, who have been making the point, and I don't know if this is true, so take it with a grain of salt, that because they've already been approved by the FOM and by the FIA, they can, if they wanted to, show up at testing, show up at the first race of the season and compete. What they've been rejected from is having any TV coverage, is the Liberty media side of it, right? The TV coverage, the winnings, the media, the coverage, all that, social media coverage, any of it. They've been basically cut out from receiving any of that if they don't get approved by F1 and Liberty Media, which is hard for me to understand why Liberty Media has cut them out, because Liberty Media is an American company. So the short to all this is, when Fernando Alonso retires, I'm not watching F1 until Andretti gets joined. I'm going to make sure. Sorry, the dogs are just doing. Listen, I'm by myself right now. I can't take care of everything in the house while I'm recording. But when Fernando retires, I think I'm just going to stop watching F1 until Andretti and Cadillac comes in. Because here's the thing: Americans are really good at holding grudges. And I sat back and I thought about it. You know, they want to take our tracks or street circuits. They want to take our money. They want to take all the ad dollars. Netflix blew up more than in any other country with Drive to Survive in the U.S. Brad Pitt, the U.S. movie industry, pulling attention, doing more promotion for F1. They want to do all that, but then when we say, hey, guys, hey, can we have one of our favorite U.S. teams? Can we come race? Please? They're like, no. Sorry. And we don't have a good reason to either. But we're just going to look at you and say, no, sorry, kick rocks. We don't want you. So if they don't want us, then they can deal with the ramifications of not having an American fan base. Now, I know that all the Drive to Survive fans are just right over their head. They don't even care because they think Charles Leclerc is hot. So they're going to keep watching. But for those of us that want motorsports to be motorsports and not a private clubhouse for the rich and famous, I present to you IMSA, IndyCar, NASCAR, any of the other racing series in the world. Hell, I give you Super GT. All right, and it's unfortunate. I think the only reason I come back every time to watch it is because of Fernando. He's been a role model. He's been an icon. He's been an idol of mine. And so, I am connected too strongly to him to be able to pull away now and not support him, not watch his career come to a close in Formula One. But Lord, I cannot wait for it to change to something else, if it's World Endurance or IMSA or anything else, really. So that all being said, let me know what you think about the Andretti drama here in the comments, because I don't know how this is the case. We're moving on to bigger news. I'm going to need some caffeine for this one. Give me one sec. Lewis Hamilton is driving for Ferrari in 2025 on a multi-year contract. You know what's funny about this? He still has to race 2024 with Mercedes, which is going to be awkward. If I'm Mercedes, just put everything towards George Russell. But also, Carlos Sainz has to race with Ferrari in 2024. So if I'm Carlos Sainz, if Charles is in a place where he can win a championship, if Charles is in a place where he can win the championship, I fight for it tooth and nail. Don't give anything. But more seriously, I have a hot take on this. I think this is the end of Lewis's career. I don't think he wins another championship. He may win a few more races like Seb did. This is it. Lewis Hamilton is a has-been. No, not really. I'm just kidding. He's not going to win a championship. Not happening. So I got a couple reasons for this. So sit back, relax, open up a beer if you're watching this in the evening. Pour yourself a cup of coffee if you're here in the morning. Um, Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari signifies a couple things. One, he's losing trust in Mercedes, which I think is misplaced. I think it's Lewis being Lewis and just being impatient and whatever. That's not the point. Ferrari's advantage over Mercedes the last couple of years has been speed. However, when Ferrari has had a car with pace, Ferrari has gone on to not be able to convert, not be able to execute, i.e., 2022. Ferrari wins the first several races of the season. Red Bull has double DNFs. Red Bull has DNFs where it's just one car, getting spun, hits, whatever, not finishing races. Ferrari off to a resounding jump start on Red Bull at the beginning of the season. They actually had the faster car. Who won 2022? Who was considered dominant for 2020? Oh, Max Verstappen and Red Bull. Oh, so Ferrari had an advantage. They had the car. They couldn't figure out how to put the pieces together and build a championship contending campaign. Remember, Sergio Perez ended up being second in the championship that year too, if my memory serves me right. Sergio was winning races. Ferrari wasn't even able to beat the Red Bull number 2 in the championship or on the track. So you have Ferrari, who, when they had the fastest car on the grid, was not able to, with pit strategy, pit execution, or car development, keep up with the best. Keep in mind, Mercedes was miserable at the beginning of the 22 season. And by the end of it, they weren't too far off Ferrari and Red Bull. Now, 2023. Ferrari did not have the fastest car, but they still had the second fastest. Some of the Ferrari drivers, I don't even remember if it was Carlos or Charles, it doesn't really matter, were behind Lewis in the championship, behind Fernando in the championship. So Ferrari is not the place you go to win. Quick refresher for the Drive to Survive fans. Ferrari has only won their last championship in 2007. They have not won a single one since then. Let's also remind them, Sebastian Vettel in the mid-2010s, right? We're talking 15, 16, 17. So mid to late, I guess, was winning races with Ferrari in a championship contending car and was not able to convert. Not able to convert. You have, and that's nothing against Seb, but I'm making the point that Sebastian Vettel is as good of a driver as Lewis Hamilton is. And if Sebastian Vettel is unable to make that conversion, having had the whole Michael Schumacher being the previous German and Michael Schumacher idolization who built this team up, and Seb who's willing to invest in the team and did invest in the team for years and years and years and years. And what happened? Ferrari went backwards. Look at 2019 and 2020 Ferrari. They went backwards from where they were in 17, 18. And what it was, Fabrizio Arriva-Bene leaving and Mattia Binotto coming in was one of the stupidest decisions in all of Formula One team management I've ever seen in my life. That's not the point. Ferrari's not the place where you want to go if you want to win. It's that simple. Oh, well, maybe Lewis can rebuild it. Listen, Lewis was already saying he may need to take a year off to figure out if he wants to stay in the sport. Lewis signed a multi-year deal. That could be 2. I think it's probably 3. To rebuild a team, you need more than 3 years. You may start hitting your stride at year 2. I think Lewis will win races based on opportunity with Ferrari. They will not and have not and cannot for over a decade put together a year-long serious championship contending campaign, whether their opponent was Mercedes, whether their opponent was Red Bull. Against either of them, they have not been able to, over the course of a year, put together a championship winning campaign. They have started in a position where they were better and faster, and they blew it. That's a Ferrari cock-up. That's not something that you can blame on the drivers. That's not something you can blame on the car. Purely down to, hell, who was it that came in for Ferrari? They just didn't have the tires. They're like, oh, shoot, the red car's ours. So anyway, that's number 1. Number 2, I trust Mercedes more than I do Ferrari to, in a situation where they're not competitive, to put their nose to the grindstone and build a car that is competitive. What would you rather have? A faster car with a team that can't do anything, or a slower car with a team that almost never screws up strategy, who is almost always consistent. I'd much rather have that with Mercedes. Let's not forget, Lewis had multiple podiums last year with Mercedes. Do you think he's going to do better with Ferrari? A good season next year for Lewis 2025. For Lewis with Ferrari, a good season looks like getting podiums. And he was just getting that with Mercedes, and he's walking away from it to go to Ferrari. Now, I get it being a passion. That's not what we're talking about. Lewis can do whatever he'd like in his life, and he has more money than I'll ever have. But for the people that are thinking this is like a Marc Marquez to Ducati, where, well, Marc Marquez wasn't a good equipment, now he is, so everybody watch out, he's going to be a title contender. It's not going to be that. This is a passion project. Ferrari is a charity for Lewis Hamilton, and that's what this is. So Mercedes, I have exponentially more trust in building a car and rebounding to the front of the field. And let's not forget, they've been at the front of the field. They were getting podiums. But to a winning position, I have much more faith in Mercedes than I do in Ferrari. That's just the long and short of that. On top of it all, Lewis is leaving an environment where he is the bona fide number one. Oh, well, there were times where George Russell didn't obey team orders. Sure. Toto Wolff, James Allison, whoever. James Allison, that technical director, right? Yeah. Bono. Lewis is, without a shadow of a doubt, the number one. Everybody from Mercedes knows that Lewis is the number one. So if Lewis wanted to win another championship, unfortunately, I don't like that this is the case, but I'm on a roll, so let me go here. You have to have a good number one and a number two driver to win the championship. If you don't, it's not likely to happen. If you look at 2021 with Max Verstappen, if Checo was not a good number two, he does not win that championship. Same in 2022, because Checo could have decided 2022 is my year, I'm going for it. So you have to have a good number two in order to put up the net points throughout the course of a season that will give you a win. It's a requirement. And that's unfortunate. That's not how I like it, but that's the case. Lewis is leaving a situation where George Russell, even though he gets feisty at times, was always a team player. And sometimes being a team player meant, hey, for the betterment of the team, let me buy, whatever. But he was a team player. You're going to Charles, who is a team player. But let's not forget, Charles has had and holds the record for the longest contract ever signed by Ferrari to a driver in the history of the marque. Or the marquee, whatever. Charles Leclerc holds that record. He is their franchise quarterback. He is the driver that they said, Charles is our young driver. We're putting everything behind him the same way that McLaren did with Lewis, the same way that McLaren is doing with Lando, right? Charles Leclerc is their golden boy. Does Lewis think that him walking in is going to make him number one? Is Lewis just going to be a number two? Why would he leave Ferrari to be a number two? Why would Lewis, has several years left in him of championship winning ability, why would he go be a number two at a team that already isn't a championship contender? I think Lewis expects to be a number one because of his resume, but Charles also expects to be a number one. So now what Lewis has done is, in addition to competitiveness, in addition to the consistency, the execution, Lewis has now opened up the variables that he didn't have at Mercedes of competing for number one and having a teammate that's not going to yield. So for all these reasons, I'm out. No, but for all these reasons, Lewis, he's just not going to win a championship at Ferrari. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Charles has said that's his dream. I want to win a championship with Ferrari. Between the two, the car's built around Charles, and I have a lot more faith in Charles working with the Ferrari than I do Lewis. So that's my Lewis rant. But I want to know what y'all think in the comments. Let me know. Was this a good move? Was it a bad move? Is it just a passion project and everybody's taking it way too seriously? Let me know. But on top of all that, who's going to get the Mercedes seat? Kind of crazy, but Valtteri Bottas posted an Instagram story of him in Brackley, where the Mercedes headquarters is. Do we see a Valtteri Bottas-George Russell partnership? Do we see Fernando Alonso joining Mercedes? Do we see Carlos Sainz taking Lewis's seat? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much to everybody who comes and watches the Drivers Debrief. Make sure to use that hashtag on X. Make sure to follow me there at NicholasPatty21. all the stuff I've tweeted, retweeted, shared my thoughts, so you can get it fresh off the skillet before I have time to think over my thoughts and word it more appropriately. Make sure to check it out there. Share the video with your friends. Share the channel with your friends. Like and subscribe. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This has been episode 4 of the Driver's Debrief. I'll see you next time.